Hello, hello, and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I am your host, Raider. And ooh, buddy, I'm doing something in the background right now, but the reason why I am currently doing this live stream, this impromptu live stream, has to do with my most recent video that I put out today on educating VA disability, the new M21 changes. Specifically the changes to 522A. And I'm not sure if any of you have had the opportunity to watch that video, but I think you do. Or I think you should, actually. So why am I doing a live stream about this? Is because I want some questions and answers that people can potentially watch and get behind. Because let me tell you guys, this might not seem like a big deal, right? Actually, I'm going to answer North Idaho's guys because he had a cardiac issue, so he gets to have his questions answered tonight. So my question, I'm in step 3 with claimed hypertension. Should something upload everything from yesterday, including all that they found in my heart cath? Yeah, you should probably upload all that stuff. Okay, so why is this change such a big deal? Is because it is what I would consider an element killer. It is a way for the VA to be able to restrict your ability to be granted for something. So let me start out up front, okay? Let's start out up front. Can this change to the M21 manual negatively affect things that are service connected currently? And my answer is going to be maybe. I'm going to be honest with you. The answer is maybe that maybe this stuff could affect some things. And I'm going to give you some use case scenarios here. So I'm going to share my screen. This is the change that was put out. And let me make this bigger for you guys so that way you can see it. So what this is saying is that if you have, let's say you have diarrhea and it's due to lactose intolerance, and I do know for a fact that people have been granted for this. I do know that people have been granted for this. If a DRO were to come across this rating decision post change, and you put a higher level review in front of them, they could actually propose to sever the diarrhea because it's actually a transitory condition or an acute condition. So there is a potential there for bad things to happen. But one of the things that makes this, I get the fact that people will not understand this, okay? But it is so terrifying to me personally. And it has to do with a couple of things here. I'm going to share my other screen. That's going to take me a second to get up here. So I want to do the untitled whiteboard. Yes. Okay. And we're going to make this hopefully a little bit bigger. Okay. So what this change does, typically when you have something like direct service connection, you have element 1, which is a current diagnosis. You have element 2, which is the in-service event. Okay. And then you have element 3, which is where element 1 and element 2 get linked together. And then once they get linked together, you get granted, right? That's the way direct service connection works. The problem with this is if they start mecking around with this, and let's say that you go before the examiner, and rather than say that you have diarrhea or you have some condition, they say that it's acute or transitory in nature, well, then you no longer have element 1 anymore. because it's acute and or transitory. You don't have element 1. So element 3 cannot be satisfied. So this element 3 right here cannot be satisfied because you do not have a disability. An acute or transitory condition is not a disability for VA purposes. It's just not. It doesn't constitute a disability. So that can happen to where you're doing the DBQ with the medical examiner and they go, you know what? I don't think that sinusitis is chronic in nature. That sounds more like acute sinusitis. Or they do this with hypertension a lot of the time. You had maybe like 2 or 3 high blood pressures, but you've had 10 blood pressures and all the rest of them have been normal. I think that that's a transitory thing. It's not really a disability, right? So they have the ability to take your element 1, the examiners do. They have the ability to take your element 1 out of the equation by calling it acute or transitory. If they call it acute or transitory, then you don't have element 1. You don't have a disability. You just have something like the common cold, okay? Now that's the first problem with this is examiners can do that where they say that your current manifestation of it is not a disability. It's just acute or transitory. Hey, H-Town Vet, how you doing? Now, the other problem is they can actually do the same thing based upon your in-service element 2. So element 2 is the in-service event, injury, or diagnosis. So what this can do is, let's say that you have diarrhea in service. You've been treated for diarrhea. Let's say you were in service for 8 years. And let's say that you got treatment for 8 years in service. Well, if the examiner should find that your diarrhea is due to something like lactose intolerance, all 8 years don't count. That condition, the element 2, will go away. It will become acute and or transitory. So you didn't have a disability in service. You had acute/transitory. Anything. Matthew, nearly everything can be acute and transitory in nature. Things like anything under 38 CFR 3.309A is can't be considered acute or transitory. But everything else can be. Okay? Do you understand like how scary this is? Everything else can be acute or transitory. Your mental health, acute or transitory. Hey, Salty Old Marine. Everything can be acute or transitory in nature, non-permanent disability. Okay? So this is what freaks me out, is because they're giving more power, okay? They're giving more power to the examiners and to the raters to decide random nonsense is acute and or transitory in nature, which means not a disability. It's not a disability. So this change flew under everyone's radar. Everyone's radar. So, okay, but this is a good point. This is a good point. This is where we start out with this. Every single claim is going to be denied moving forward. Now, I don't just bring problems, I bring solutions. So, how do we fix this? Okay, how do we make our evidence bulletproof for this? MCM, this is what I'm kind of talking about with you guys, okay? So, when you guys talk to veterans about getting their conditions to be substantially complete claims, the days of just saying that you've got symptoms and walking into somewhere are over. Okay, guys, those days are gone. The days where you can say, oh yeah, I just have knee pain. No, you can't do that anymore. So here's what it's going to require. This is Raider HQ's bottom line, okay? Like for evidence moving forward. You don't need it every single time, but let's say we want to satisfy to where they cannot do a acute or transitory condition. You need to have specifically a diagnosis formally made on the condition, and 6 months worth of symptoms. Now, that's for element 1. So for element 1, you need 6 months worth of symptoms documented and a formal diagnosis moving forward. So that way you do not fall victim to acute or transitory. Oh, I've got knee pain. Okay. It's acute or transitory. Migraines. Oh, those are acute or transitory. He just had one. That's not a chronic disability. It's not a chronic disability, guys. Okay. So element 2 is going to be a little bit more challenging. Okay. This is where, and now and I'm going to be upfront with you, these facts have to be true. Okay. For element 1, the facts have to be true. For element 2, the facts also have to be true. If you have 6 months of symptoms in service for your condition, I got to get that Canva thing off there. If you have 6 months of symptoms for your condition, then you need to potentially report in your statement, in your lay statement, about the symptoms in service, what they look like, what your treatment look like for 6 months. Oops. Now, MCM says, okay, 6 months of symptoms and a formal diagnosis because doctors love to give veterans everything they need. I get that. But here's what I'm saying. If you want to walk into this situation armored to the teeth to be able to fight against it, that's going to be the only way that you do that. Because they have updated the M21-1, okay? Higher level reviews will back the rater on this. Higher level review DROs will back the rater because it will ask them, did you follow the manual? Right? Like, because that's what it is. Did the rating decision follow the manual? Yes, the examiner said that the condition was acute or transitory. We have to take their word on that. Okay. We just have to. And let me I'm going to share something else. So give me just a second here, okay, guys? So that's why this thing is so like concerning to me. And let me see if this is the right thing to share. Okay, so let me see here. So this is satisfying the current disability requirement for service connection. Okay, so generally this criterion is satisfied when a current examination or other evidence demonstrates the presence of a chronic disability. Okay, that's what happens. So the chronic disability is established by 6 months worth of complaints. All right. 6 months worth of complaints, 6 months worth of symptoms, 6 months worth of complaints. Now, I'm also going to take you somewhere else and I'm going to share a different screen. It only lets me do like one sharing at a time. Okay. Which I wish it would just let me put things on deck here. Now, what I want to share with you is 38 CFR 3.159. And this is where we are looking at nope, I ain't sharing nothing. So you got to share stuff to share it. Okay, so 3.159. This is my frustration with this. Okay, this is my frustration right here. Competent medical evidence means evidence provided by a person who is qualified through education, training, or experience to offer a medical diagnosis, statements, or opinions. So when we talk about whether or not there's competent medical evidence, that explicitly means, for the most part, there are exceptions, that this is from the examiner. Okay. So competent medical evidence that you do not have a current disability because it's acute or transitory means that we were given that evidence by the CMP examiner. If the CMP examiner marks that you have an acute or transitory condition, then guess what? We can't fight that. I can't fight that. No rater can fight that. No medical, as long as the medical opinion is consistent, as long as the DBQ is consistent, okay? Because of that, Because the examiner says it, it's in their wheelhouse to make that determination. We can't fight them. The only way to fight them, should you be denied because of an acute or transitory determination, either be it through element 1 or element 2, the only way to fight that is to honestly get a different doctor to report that the condition is, that the element is there. Oh no, I've reviewed the evidence and I think that there is a current there is a current diagnosed condition that is chronic in nature. Okay. No. Okay. So let me be clear. Getting a private DBQ for this will not help because you still have to go through the extra steps to do the private DBQ. But guess what? Raters can now disqualify private DBQs if they don't provide that chronic nature. Like if they don't explain why the condition's chronic. If there isn't 6 month worth of symptoms being discussed, then the rater can defer it back and say, hey, look, you need to identify whether or not this condition is chronic in nature. All right. Now I understand that this is probably going to upset some of you guys. But you either have the current, examiners can now do this with element 1 or element 2. They can call it acute or transitory. They can just put, nope, doesn't exist. They can rewrite history and they can say that this either does or does not exist. And it's frustrating because whenever I go back, and I'm just going to keep sharing different screens here because I want to just go, and it makes me very frustrated because the people that filled this out probably thought that they were doing something, potentially really cool, and it's not that way. So, but look at these new examples here. Seasonal and other allergic reactions, such as allergic rhinitis. Okay, MCM asks a very good question. If you go into the process with a diagnosis and 6 months of symptoms, will the CMP examiner's opinion overrule the evidence coming in? It can. But at least with 6 months of symptoms and a diagnosis, the rater can fight back and say, whoa, 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 why do you think this is acute or transitory? They've got 6 months worth of symptoms. That's all I need for chronic disability. Could you please fill out the rest of the DBQ? So that's the criteria, right? So I'm just saying, when you submit a claim, make sure that you meet the minimum criteria to have a chronic disability. Because yes, they can overcome that and overturn that and say, no, I don't think so. And even though they might do it for the current diagnosis, or they can go back in time and attack element 2, the in-service injury, and say, well, he only kind of tripped and fell down. So that wouldn't have caused his current manifestation of symptoms. So this is very bad. Okay. But what got me was this. I can maybe understand seasonal allergies, right? But allergic rhinitis has residuals. So what are we talking about here? Diarrhea has residuals, right? The act of having diarrhea, if you have it again, then that means you've got residuals because you keep having it. And I don't understand. It is really hard for me to not go to Conspiracy Town. It is really, really hard for me, guys, to not go to Conspiracy Town because I'm just trying to keep, I'm just balls and strikes as best I can on this. But there's no upside to this. Acute and transitory conditions was a rare thing to apply to a claim. But this is making it to where it can be very, very common to do so. Yeah. And then when we get down here, this is what I was talking about beforehand whenever I said competent medical evidence. You remember from that 38 CFR 3.159? Competent medical evidence means that the examiner tells the rater what is true. That's what competent medical evidence equates to. So competent medical evidence, I'll do the shimmy again. We'll go back here and we'll share it again because I wasn't prepared and it's hard to share different screens. But competent medical evidence, right? Competent medical evidence is defined in the 38 CFR as in the DBQ completed by the CMP examiner. That's who gets to be the competent medical evidence person. I can't with this. Oh, wait, hold on. I forgot to share. So this competent medical evidence means evidence provided by a person who is qualified through education training. This is your CMP examiner. That's why when people get so upset, they're like, why did you listen to the CMP examiner and not my evidence in my current treatment records? Because 38 CFR 3.159 tells us that we have to listen to the medical examiner. We just have to. Like this is the way the process works. It says it right here. This is the definition of competent medical evidence. The qualified human being is the medical examiner. That's the only person that touches this. And then I'm going to go back again. We're going back, back. Share screen. And we're going to go to, that was 159. Oh, no. Right, here we go. Share, and then I got to hit it. Okay, but that's where the competent medical evidence comes into play as to what is or is not a chronic disability. So the examiner decides this, guys. Yeah, same thing with me, Doc. I technically was both. So, because I have the both criteria. I did not get an X. Hold on, I just want to AA Ron. Hi, I did not get an X examined, Shaw. Will this affect my disability claim, good or bad? We don't know. Actually, okay. So this is a good question, AA Ron. Where this problem happens with this stuff right here in acute and transitory is going to be for veterans that have longer time periods from when they were in service. Okay. If you're just getting out, then the condition has lasted for longer than 6 months, and it's easier for you to prove that it's a chronic disability. Okay. And not oh, that's just an acute thing that happened then, and then 20 years went by and you've got it again. So this is kind of, and I want to be careful on how I say this, but it gives me the vibes that this is an intended thing to really start putting the kibosh on granting. Yes, and John Williams says it the best, okay? And John Williams, thank you for bringing this up, because look, I'm not telling you that the VBA is the end-all be-all, okay? I stay within what I know. I only know about the VBA. I don't know about the Board of Veterans Appeals or the BVA. They follow a completely different set of rules and regulations. I'm just putting out the warning flags here to say, look, guys, yeah, you might want to be cautious of this because they're ratcheting down on the requirements. They're making it to where you can't just say, oh yeah, my knee hurts. Like, what will this hurt? This will hurt Gulf War medical opinions because the examiners will be able to go, oh no, that's due to lactose, that diarrhea. That's not due to anything. And they don't need any evidence to support that conclusion. That's how sideways this is. They don't require any evidence to support that medical conclusion because they don't have to prove themselves. They can just say, no, it's due to this. I've reviewed this, that, and the other, and it's great. T Wood, okay, please calm my anxiety. I have a CMP exam on Thursday for tension headaches, element 1 and element 2 conceded. The problem is the examiner previously denied for a different condition. It's a VA. So I don't think that the claims right in the here and now are going to be affected by this. But you always want to go in. This is about the process of structuring your evidence. You need to make sure that you talk about the severity of your condition as what's true for you. You need to make sure that you have a functional understanding of what migraines 38 CFR is and what it is, what it means. And then you also need to like have um a causal relationship. So whatever you're saying it's caused by, you need to make sure that you're articulating all of that, which can be challenging, guys. So it's going to be very challenging. And GC Jarhead, everyone's going to sit calls 6 months before like ETS. Yeah. Or yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think you should. But as you see here, it's like although determinations for service connection for diseases of allergic etiology must be based upon the whole evidentiary showing. Okay. But if I were to take this sentence, and the reason why I wanted to do a live on this is because I wanted to talk about kind of break these sentences down. So, must be based on the whole evidentiary showing. Well, guess who makes that determination? The examiner makes that determination. The rater doesn't make that determination, the examiner does. So, seasonal and other acute allergic manifestations, as defined in this thing, are generally considered acute diseases healing without residuals. So, what I said in my video was, look, they mentioned asthma in here. Bronchial asthma is being a seasonal allergic manifestation. So, and somebody in the comments section made a good comment. Okay. And they're upset because they're like, look, that's the M21. That's not the 38 CFR. What are we doing with this? Yeah. And Salty's right, guys. This is going to be okay. But what we have to do is we have to prepare ourselves for this change. Okay? You have to adapt to the change. And that's what I'm saying. You have to be more structured with your evidence. You have to satisfy, like, you might have to wait a few months before you file your claim because you need to acquire a few more months of data to support that you have a chronic disability. The salty old Marine is 1,000% correct on this. We need calm. Now, this live stream's not made to freak you guys out. That's not what I do. But I am trying to raise awareness to this. And some people have already told me that's not a big deal. And I'm like, it is a big deal. And you're going to be frustrated because this big deal is not well explained. So I'm trying to do the explanation right now. And I'm trying to just, make sure that we all at least identify that there's a problem. We're all on the same page, north south on this, that there is a problem, and we need to make sure that we account for the problem. Obviously, if you don't have the evidence to support it, then the evidence isn't there. But if you do have the evidence to support it, then make the best claim that you can. Gather 6 months worth of evidence showing treatment, showing this, showing that. Because they're making it harder. They literally are. I don't know why. I have no rationale as to why they're doing this, but there is the potential that it will be much harder to service connect things. And I think somebody asked, is this something that can affect secondaries? Yes, this can affect anything. It comes down to element 1, element 2, element 1 being your current diagnosis. Examiners moving forward after they get the training on it will start weighing in more heavily on whether or not something's acute or transitory in nature. Let me answer a couple of questions here. I will not answer MCMs because that's just hilarious. And so if they didn't check the boxes, Beth, then that might be a good opportunity for a higher level review saying that, like, hey, look, the duty to assist wasn't completed. They didn't follow their own process and they didn't check all the boxes. So that would be, something to pursue for that. Let me see here. Is it even worth going to a CMP now for asthma? Yes, it's still okay. It's just they want you to dot your I's and cross your T's more strictly. They want to make sure that you are going through the steps to make sure you have a chronic disability. 6 months of chronicity, acute and or transitory, can is the way that they can get you. And as long as you understand what, like, oh wow, they thought I had an acute, current diagnosis, then you know how to go about fixing it. You just get more evidence showing that, over a 6-month period of time, hey, look, I still have the symptoms if that's true, and then come with a formal diagnosis with the evidence, and that's new and relevant evidence for a supplemental claim. The hero. Just to be clear, there a specific list of conditions for this? Earn I heard you mention asthma. There is Okay, so it's everything that's not on 38 CFR 3.309A. Anything could be on here. There are some like exceptions with like cancers and whatnot, but for the most part, it could technically be anything. For the most part, it would take me a longer time period to list every single thing in the 38 CFR Part 4 that it could be. How might this affect IBS and MUCME? Well, IBS and MUCMEs happen after discharge. So a lot of this acute and transitory thing, MUCMEs have a built-in acute or transitory 6-month requirement. So in order to claim something as a MUCME, you had to have had the symptoms for 6 months. So it kind of has a built-in, um, kind of chronicity type situation. Where I'm concerned about is this right here. If they can make an alternative cause, such as diarrhea due to lactose intolerance, if they can start doing, like, if examiners can start doing that now, then that would hurt MUCMEs. If the examiner can come up with a cause like lactose intolerance. Because once one of the elements is deemed to be acute or transitory, we can't grant. You're missing that element, potentially for that theory, especially if it's for the diagnosis. If your diagnosis is acute or transitory in nature, and that's what this would be, then you couldn't get a MUCME for it because it wouldn't meet the criteria for a chronic issue. Let me move down here a little bit. So, yeah, no, I just felt like doing this live stream because it's driving me nuts. So, oh, there's another thing I want to talk about. So I'm going to circle back on this a few times while we're talking. So how to format your evidence for claims. So one of the things I talked about was front loading your evidence to make sure that the condition has persisted for 6 months or more. The second thing that also I want you to maybe think about is, what are the residuals from this condition, right? Like, what residuals may or may not have manifested from it. So, like, I have this knee condition, it pops, it clicks, but I also have pain. It makes it hard to stand, like whatever it is. Because the requirement for acute and transitory is that it be without apparent residuals. So if you can prove residuals, then it's not acute. And if it's something that is permanent over 6 months, then it is not transitory. You have to look at how they've defined each one of these and tailor your evidence, if true, to combat this. And this is the weakest link for the acute disability, is if it does actually manifest residuals. Okay. And for this one, it's if it does last longer than 6 months. Does this make sense, guys? Am I explaining this? No, Mr. A, this is kind of an in case of emergency break glass thing, because we had a big thing and not a lot of people on YouTube even caught this. So it's not good by any means. So it's something that you'll probably want to watch the first 30 minutes of the live to pick up on what you may have missed. Okay. So Once again, just to pad your evidence, you've got to read how they're looking at it and you've got to find the weakest link, which is residuals. So if you can provide residuals, then the condition's not acute. Okay. If it's lasted for over 6 months, it's not transitory. So that's how you can go about breaking this up and making it to where they can't get you on this technicality. That's the only way I can say it is it's a weird technicality. And you can use that to fight a higher level review. So if your condition does have residuals and they say that it's an acute condition, you can go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Per, this particular manual reference right here, it's not an acute disability because I do have residuals. My doctor says I have residuals from this condition, so it's not acute. And it's lasted for over 6 months, so it's not transitory in nature. So I'm going to keep going down here. Charlton, have the Raiders overlords stopped using past cigarette smoking as an excuse to deny for service toxic exposure for lung breathing COPD, even if you had service pneumonia? They can still do it. I mean, there's a section in the manual for smoking. I rarely go to it. It's not the theme of tonight's video, so I won't go there tonight, but there is a section in there on what to do if the veteran did smoke. Now, if the smoking is a byproduct of something like PTSD, so like if you had PTSD and then you started smoking because of PTSD and you got something because of smoking, that's a way that you can work around that whole barrier there. That's like smoking can be an intermediate step for like PTSD or an anxiety disorder. But anyway, let's keep going. So I answered this. This is for any theory for service connection. So what they're expanding on is the examiner's ability to call something acute or transitory, which means no disability, no injury. So just wanting to clarify that. Oh, really? Like, this is funny. Why do we find the M21 sometimes conflicting with the 38 CFR, and who is responsible to fix it? It's maddening. Okay, T-Mac. It's not that it conflicts, okay, because the 38 CFR tells everybody what needs to be done. And the M21 tells the staff members how to do it, how to manifest that 38 CFR into reality. And sometimes they don't get it right, as evidenced by a lot of these court cases in which they're like, hey, look, like the VA isn't following the 38 CFR. They're doing this, this, and this. Think about Ingram v. Collins, for example, one of the newer ones. It happens all the time. And it's the VA, it's Papa Bear. Like there's an entire like best team. I don't know who actually rewrites the manual and does the updates. I don't have much in the way of an answer on that, but it might be the best team. I don't know. But Papa Bear Doug Collins has some buy-in on this. And so I'm not a big fan of this. This change right here, there's no upside to this. I have racked my brain for an upside to this change, and there isn't one. It is challenging at best and punitive at worst. So challenging just meaning that you have to do more due diligence to organize your evidence, get more evidence. And yes, Ken, the M21 contradicts itself all the time because guess what? Not the same person writes and updates this stuff, and they forget about like things that they update. They update based upon changes, feelings, all that kind of stuff. Oh, wow. Thank you for the support. Oh, wow. This is cool. Thank you. Question. I'm a Gulf War vet with service-connected tongue cancer, 0%. And I'm sorry for that, man. That sucks. Tongue cancer sucks. The PTSD at 70%. I have VA diagnosis and treatment for fibromyalgia, rhinitis, fatigue, migraines, IBS, chronic rash. File at the same time. Will PTSD be reviewed? No, it won't. PTSD, as long as you don't talk about PTSD, it shouldn't come into play. Now, the rhinitis is presumptive under 38 CFR 3.320, fibromyalgia under 38 CFR 3.317, fatigue, chronic fatigue 3.317, migraines under can go under 3.317 for the MUCME, IBS MUCME, chronic rash MUCME. 6 months worth of symptoms for each of these, Spanky. Hear me on this. You have to, from this moment forward, you have to have 6 months worth of verifiable symptoms and a diagnosis for each one of these things. And the way that you're claiming is due to MUCME, no known causes if it's possible. Like, I wouldn't ask them what's causing it at all. Salty Old Marine, real talk. We must adapt to change. And that's true, H-Town. Like, but I'm still reeling from this, as evidenced by the fact that I'm having a live stream about it. I'm reeling because this came out of nowhere. This was so left field and weird that I don't even understand what it's for. What section? It's up here. It's, where is it? It's going to be, nope. Come on. We're going around the horn. Oh, man, it doesn't even say. Okay, it's going to be 522A section. So 522A. It will not affect MST claims because that's under a different. It has its own special process for review, so they will not muck around with that. Okay, so that has its own specialty review that is much more severe and intensive. It's kind of it's a no touch type scenario for MST. So don't worry about MST. Just tuning in. Sorry if I already addressed this, but none of this applies to conditions that have been service connected for 10 years or more, right? That are also static. Ken, if you bring anything to issue, they can drag it in. If you don't bring anything to issue, it should be fine. I don't know how QRT is going to determine this, because there's a very weird way that QRT could review this. And they could say that, well, because this thing, and I'll just go down here, like if you were granted because you were granted for diarrhea that started in service and you were diagnosed with diarrhea due to lactose intolerance, on the 13th of January, 2026, you could technically be granted for diarrhea due to lactose intolerance because it doesn't matter. It manifested in service. But after the 14th, this same scenario would be denied because the diarrhea wouldn't have been considered a disability, which begs the question, and I don't know the answer to this. If a rogue dro got a hold of this, could they sever it because diarrhea in this context wouldn't be a disability? I don't know. Yeah. Should be already granted no touchy. Yeah, that's true. Boom, nailed it, actually. That's a better thing. 9 to 12 months beforehand. Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you, like, and I said that I was going to talk about this, but BDD claims are a different animal because your complaints are happening in real time while you're on active duty. Of all the veteran demographics, BDD claims have the least amount that this will monkey around with. If the examiner finds you have a disability, you get granted. They don't find you have a disability, then you don't have a disability, you don't get granted. That's the way that's going to be. So BDD claims are fine. But it's us veterans that are like, hey, look, I've been out for 5+ years, and I've had a little bit of chronicity between my in-service event and my current manifestation. That's the window of opportunity for examiners to start getting creative, I guess is how I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, so how will this be affecting secondaries? So it'll be affecting secondaries because what'll happen is the current diagnosis. Every single theory for service connection uses element 1, current diagnosis. and examiners can actually come to different conclusions and say, oh, no, he doesn't have a chronic disability. It's acute or transitory. He just has something a little bit, it's intermittent. Um, and I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to say is the game has changed. So you need to start adapting. We need to get ahead of this before we become the victim of this and spend a year and a half doing supplemental claims going, why is this not working? Okay. So it's none of this is meant to freak anybody out, but it is forewarned, is forearmed that they have made a drastic change. Okay. Too late. Sorry, Mr. Ray. So that they've made a drastic change. And so I don't understand why they're doing it, but they're doing it. They're making this very obscure reason for denial because this is a way that like in VBMSR, you can deny somebody if something's a constitutional condition, a congenital condition, a developmental condition, think lab results. Oh, I just have testosterone, I have low testosterone. That's a lab finding. It's not considered a disability for VA purposes. Acute and transitory conditions are also not deemed disabilities for VA purposes. So whenever it was very rarely used. I mean, like to be honest with you, I may have done like 20 acute or transitory denials historically. But this is actually making it to where it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to do that. So I don't know. Very, very weird tonight. I know, guys, and I'm sorry. I wish I had better news for you. The earning capacity thing is not like that would be like saying I need proof of a disability that was related to service, right? Like we already know it's due to earning capacity, but it's not actually related to earning capacity. That's just an archaic thing that they use to determine what 10% is or what 20% is. Weirds me out. So asthma is not really a seasonal for acute allergic manifestation, lung disease. Unfortunately, it is for VA purposes as the way that they wrote this up. So it can be interpreted like that. Do not have a panic attack. This is going to be one of those things where we have to talk about it. And if you have questions, we're going to get through this. But what I don't want to have you have happen is you file a claim, you don't understand why you were denied, and then you play this game for a year and a half not knowing what's going on. It actually shouldn't affect increases. So increases should be safe. Should be, hopefully. We're hoping that it is. We don't know yet, but it should be. I'm going to go with should be. Yeah. I would probably tell him you didn't get a separation health assessment. Well, I'm not misleading. Yeah, I mean, I'm. It's right here in front of me, right? It's I can't mislead anybody because it's written in the King's English right here. But it's going to be harder. Let me see here. Let me find some more questions. So, 6 months as a suggestion, or is that somewhere which lays out chronicity? So the 6 months has to do with the MUCME requirements that chronicity equals 6 months. So that's generally the standard that has been applied to the overall like chronicity thing. Let me see here. What do I want? Window. Let's see. Let's share this and see if this works. Okay. So then we talk about general chronicity. Da, 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 da. But 38 CFR 3.317 is what talks about it here. So let me, darn it. Hold on. Be right back. So 38 CFR, which one did I say? 38 CFR 3.317? Okay. And then we got to find it. Oh my gosh, this thing. 38 CFR part 3. And then we got to go to 3.317. And we'll add this. So they talk about, for the purposes of this section, disabilities that have existed for 6 months or more and disabilities that exhibit intermittent episodes of improvement and worsening over 6 months will be considered chronic. So because this is a 38 CFR, we can use this and extrapolate this to apply it to other things for the term of chronicity. So this 38 CFR 3.317 is kind of where we get the 6 month period of chronicity will be measured from the earliest date in which the persistent evidence establishes that the signs or symptoms of the disability first became manifest. So that's where everybody gets their general definition of 38 CFR. 6 months chronicity, I should say. No, there's not a list for anything on this. It's just literally everything can be on it. And then I think I just answered this by 6 months, do you mean to see the doctor for then file 6 months later? So what I mean by this is that you say that it's been going on for 6 months and your medical evidence also reports that it's been going on for longer than 6 months. That's what I mean by this. If you say it's been going on for 6 months, but there's not any medical record showing that you've had treatment for it, then you have no corroborating evidence. And you would need corroborating evidence in order to kind of help support the notion that it is a chronic disability. Because right now, the VA is going to be looking at this and they're going to be looking for acute and transitory conditions. Okay. And then high rater, if your conditions have been service connected for 10 years and are also static, none of this applies, right? And I'm going to say it shouldn't apply, but I can't make any guarantees. I'm not trying to scare you or anything like that. I don't like using an absolute on it, but it should be fine unless there's evidence to support that, it is not a disability. It's just an acute or transitory condition. Then they can potentially, if you were to bring it to issue to try to increase it, they might be able to do something with it, but it should be fine if you don't touch it. Seasonal allergies are different than asthma. I get that, but that's not what they said. So the 38 CFR part in here, let me see here. Control, and then click on that. Yes. Let me go there. So, oh man, what did I do with it? All right, I'll have to go back here. Always got to check something else. Okay, let's stop sharing. Me and my sharing game is I'm not very good at sharing here. Wait, where's the, there it is. Okay. So let's share this. So it says, although determinations for service-connected diseases of allergic etiology, cause must be based upon the whole evidentiary record. Seasonal or other acute allergic manifestations as defined in. So then we've got to go to 38 CFR 3.380. And now this could be by intention. This could be by accident. But when we come in here, diseases of allergic etiology, including bronchial asthma. And I'm not even sharing my screen. There we go. Sorry, guys. So this right here is why I say asthma's in there, is because it's sitting right there. Well, RTC, I agree with you. I agree with you that I don't think that asthma is associated with that. But the 38 CFR, like, look, man, if you look hard enough, guys, and I'm going to just be honest with you here. If you look hard enough, the 38 CFR contradicts itself somewhere to the point that something else is part of this. And it annoys me to no end. So any condition, it should be a 6-month primary exam. It should be a 6-month evidence and before you file your claim. But I hope that answered your question, RTC. Okay, so if you filed a claim and are looking at doing a higher level review and they never requested a Go for Gen Med, should we now do one beforehand or stay ahead due to new changes? Okay, Beth, I would probably just do the higher level review because it's going to take a little while for everybody to get accustomed to this new change. That's why I want the veterans to get ahead of this and format their evidence in such a way that it prevents this from being applied to them before the bad actors in the VA start getting accustomed to it and start utilizing it as a means to, I don't know, do the things that they're going to do. Boom, nailed it. Yeah, seasonal allergies are known as allergic rhinitis. That's what allergic rhinitis is. It's a seasonal allergy. Yeah, yeah, that's what those are. So you would go to 38 CFR Part 4, and let me pull that one over. So you just go to the Code of Federal Regulations, 38 CFR Part 4, and this has basically everything in it. Arms, shoulders, wrist. You just got to look hard enough and Control F for stuff. Will symptom fluctuation cause problems with establishing a chronic condition? Yeah, it can. H-Town, that is a very good question. It actually can. So if if you walk into a CMP exam, like if you make a claim and you do not have an established diagnosis that is, chronic in nature, 6 months of, type stuff, then the fluctuating conditions can be interpreted by the examiners being acute and or transitory. Yes, that's the vulnerability currently. Now, while I'm on it, there are a few YouTubers in here. So guys, if you do at some point in time, go over to H-Town Vets YouTube channel, the Salty Old Marines YouTube channel. I think don't know if I saw the Salty Marine, but you can go over to him too. And just check out their channels. I love their channels. I watch them every single day. So they have my seal of approval in terms of I like their content. Let's get to more questions. I know, guys, this is gonna yep, that sounds good. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I think I'm FUBAR is all I have in my medical record is the exit exam and unreadable med report that even AI can't read. Then current disability, right? Like just do yourself a favor and current disability. The thing with examiners is that sometimes you get good ones, sometimes you get bad ones. As long as you make your claim, you front load your claim at the best that you humanly can and give yourself the highest likelihood of success, then it's in the hands of the random number generator, or the random node generator is what I should probably call it. Um, oh man, wife. Listen up. Here's the deal. By fall, if you can't prove your physical injury on active duty, that affects you now and diminishes earning capacity. PTSD, sleep apnea will disappear. Well, I mean, no, PTSD won't disappear. Like, and I'm going to be doing a video. I'm going to be talking about I'm going to do the video tomorrow for the changes to mental health, tinnitus, and sleep apnea. And then I'm going to talk about it on the live stream tomorrow. So, seasonal or other acute allergic manifestations is mentioned in the M21. It is. Yep. That's the both of them type situation. So, it's in the 38 it's in this 38 CFR allergic etiology too. So it talks even about urticaria and whatnot. But what I hate about the M21 manual, and I said this in the video, 38 CFR 3.380 has nothing to do with acute or transitory conditions except to provide a general definition of them. So, right here. That's it. Like that's it. Doesn't tell you what to do with them. Doesn't tell you how to handle them. Just kind of talks about it. It's kind of weird. Where am I at here? I'm at 5:19. We're at 5:47. I'm like 30 minutes behind. Okay. So let me scroll down here. Dustin, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. So Chris. No, the problem was, so yeah, if you didn't have a disability, then you didn't have a disability. If you didn't have residuals, then you didn't have residuals. The problem with this is the change in this is that they're encouraging us to actually find reasons to deny. So that's what this thing is doing. It's encouraging raters to look harder for things to deny, because that's the only thing that this is for, is to deny. Like, this is not a beneficial thing for anybody. Like, this change to the M21 is not a beneficial thing, because everything that's in yellow here is a new thing, right? Like, both of these yellow parts are new things. When they explained what acute and transitory was, they provided very good examples that do not look like everybody can agree that those are acute or transitory. The cold, right? The common cold is an acute or transitory thing. Nobody's getting cancer from the common cold or residuals typically. Pneumonia may have some kind of residuals depending on your age and or your immune system. A bruise is not a chronic disability. So the examples that they provided were really good. But then they go into rhinitis and diarrhea and skin rash. A lot of people are service connected for those things. Sorry, my Norton antivirus just came up. And then, so it actually makes it a little bit scarier, in my opinion. Just, I don't want to freak you guys out more than I already have. But it's just weird because this is meant, like, there's no other reason for this other than to say, hey, look, you guys have been too conservative with your assessment of what's an acute or transitory condition. Let's give you a few more examples to kind of get you more comfortable with doing it. And it's not something that I can actually like get behind. Boom, nailed it. Thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate it. But also, this change has a really weird set of timing, right? Like, it's freaking people out. So rather than, go completely nuts, it's oh my gosh, Jack Frost. Can you claim allergy slash intolerance to milk if you got diagnosed when you were a child? You could as an aggravation. Like if it became aggravated due to service, that's how aggravation works. You have a disability before service. You show that the military made your condition worse under 38 CFR 3.306, pre-existing condition, then yeah, you could have gotten it granted, but not now because diarrhea due to lactose intolerance isn't a disability. It's an acute or transitory condition. So very weird there. And then it's hard to read, but it's a 522A. That's the section. So just spread the word. This is going to be one of those instances where you guys got to spread the word about making sure that if you have a condition that could be deemed acute, make sure it's got residuals if that's true. Make sure that you highlight the residuals so that way you can directly refute the fact that it's acute. It can't be acute because I have residuals evidenced by X, Y, and Z. It's not transitory in nature because it's been over 6 months. See 38 CFR 3.317 for what chronicity looks like. Let me look here. I'm looking for more questions. Okay, yes, Lieutenant Dan sucks. We all hate that. Okay, LA Fire says a very good question here. Can the residuals be 0% to overcome the acute and transitory from the Raider? Yes, they can. It doesn't have to be compensable. It just has to be there. It like the cold goes away and you've got nobody could ever tell that you had a cold after you've got a cold. Okay, so let's use like the historical way that they used to review it in order to familiarize ourselves with how we're supposed to think about it. So you get a cold, you're miserable for a little while, it goes away, it's as if you never had one. As long as you have some kind of residual afterwards for your condition to show that, no, I have this, which was caused by that, then, that's how you overcome the acute disability requirement. But great question, okay? They did not send me for a wow, that is crazy. Boom, nailed it. That is an impossible question to answer. It depends on your region that you're in and the staff members that work there. I've heard great things about each one of them, but situationally, none of them are good. Some of them are good in certain instances. Others are mostly bad in almost all instances. Yes, and MCM, this is like if I could just bottle and just put a big flashing light of what the goal of this stream was, it's do not shoot your application off without having your evidence to go through it with them to make sure that you've got 6 months of chronicity and to make sure that you have a diagnosis that is established, that is evidenced by and things like that. Do not go in with my knee just hurts. Okay. Those days are behind us, my friends. Have your evidence. Okay. Fibromyalgia has its own rating schedule. Does migraines? Yes, it's under 8100. And CFS, yes, they have their own rating criteria. You can get rated for each instead of including all fibro. Yeah, they can be separately granted. If filing an increase for insomnia, should you include diagnosis of other mental health conditions that you also have been recently diagnosed with as evidence? I mean, yes, you should always do that, but it might be good to see if your insomnia has progressed into something else, like maybe an anxiety disorder or something like that. It's good to get out of insomnia and into something else if that's even possible. That's my personal opinion, though. How long post shoulder surgery should you wait to file for an increase? Currently 20% on dominant arm, total rating less than 100. Um, it's probably going to be 5 months because you should probably get the temporary 100% if you had shoulder surgery. Anytime you have surgery and you've got convalescence for it, so if you're unable to work for a certain period of time, then you should be able to get convalescence temporary 100% for it under 38 CFR 4.29 or 4.30, depending on whichever one is more appropriate. But I'll be honest with you, getting a shoulder above 20% is genuinely hard. Genuinely hard because you can't, like, okay, for shoulders, you stand at the position of attention and put your arms out 45 degrees in any direction. That's just the limit of your mobility to get a higher than 20% rating for your shoulder. Am I correct that if the claim was started before getting out, if someone just keeps being treated, they'll make the 6 month criteria, right? I mean, yeah, that's basically just keep getting treated. Um, it's in the here and now, so examiners, when they make that determination, they'll make that determination, and they'll probably side with it. Okay, let's try John. If someone got out in 1991 and has PTSD from an in-service event, doesn't that cover the 6 month chronic when filing a claim now? It depends. How far have your symptoms gone back? When were you diagnosed? Have you reported that your symptoms go back that far, or did you just now manifest PTSD? You have to have that evidence showing how far back it went, reporting the severity of it. What did that look like? Like, I had trouble sleeping. I'm short with people. I don't make friends. Like, whatever it is, you've got to have that evidence. If you don't have that evidence, then nobody's going to assume that. Like the VSR, the rater, the examiner, they're not going to assume that. Da, 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 da. So this is concerning. Boom, nailed it. Showed up with my evidence to the VSO, but he put it in some acute stuff like ear infections, even though I currently don't have one. I don't like it when they do that, just because it's like the boy that cried wolf. If you have a situation in which you make you start showing acute and or transitory conditions, then you're going to get that examiner in the mode that, oh, maybe they're not an accurate reporter. Maybe these aren't all chronic disabilities type situation. You got to be careful with this, guys. I'm trying to get down to the bottom here. They can, Dave, if you touch something. So I'm hoping that they won't, but I can't predict what Raiders and Drows and QRT are going to do on this. But if you start monkeying around with stuff that can be, like, if you've got an example here, like if you've got diarrhea due to lactose intolerance, I wouldn't touch it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wouldn't touch it at all. Have a good night, Law Dog, I guess. Yeah, and you do have more homework to do, unfortunately. So I know that, like, Doug Collins is like, you should just be able to throw a claim at the wall and it go through, and you're going to have this, that, and the other. You're going to have to do your homework whenever you file a claim. You're going to have to make sure that you have a chronic disease, that you meet criteria for element 1, element 2, for what you're talking about, like what theories for service connection that you're claiming. You are going to have to do that. There is no point to this change other than to be restrictive, to say no. Um, Not really. They have the same one. Uh, they have the same definition for this. Let me switch my screen. Switch my screen. Okay, so satisfying the current diagnosis. They're all talking about like a current diagnosed disability has these components, and then it talks about so you're going to find that in 522A1B. And generally this criterion is satisfied when the current examination and or other evidence demonstrates the presence of a chronic disability. And then it says, however, the evidence must be reviewed to determine whether the disability was present at the time of the claim was filed or during the penance of the claim, but has since resolved. So yeah, there's a few caveats here, but that's mainly it. Da, 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 da. What am I? Okay. I made it. Reader should. Okay, let me put this back up for a minute while I'm reading this stuff. Yes, if they denied it, disrobe crown. If they denied PTSD MST, then there should be a long form narrative. Then I would probably do a higher level review and ask them to do the long form narrative because it's a duty to assist error because they're required to do one. John, you can just Google 38 CFR Part 4, 38 CFR Part 3, and then you can go just Google VA M21-1. U.S. Army grunt. Thank you so much. I feel bad though. Like I honestly do feel bad bringing this up, but guys, there's no upside to this. It is just a bad thing that they did. It doesn't help anybody, and you're going to have it to where VSRs and raiders are going to confuse this guidance, and it can be even worse than this, to where they're just like, I think that that's an acute or transitory condition. Because you have to understand, like, hypertension could be deemed an acute or transitory condition if you predominantly do not have blood pressures that meet the criteria. The VA just for the most part gives you the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time. So it's just weird. I don't like it. And there we go. And this is the thing. We don't know how the examiners are going to respond, and we won't know how the raters will rate for a while yet. Exactly. So the best practice is start front loading your claims with better evidence so that way you don't fall victim to this. This is going to be different because the symptoms for each one of these could be caused by either one. So you're going to have a problem here. So you're going to have a problem with either the examiner will be able to say, oh, his symptoms are due to deviated septum, which has nothing to do with service. Or, yes, the deviated septum has to do with service, but maybe the allergic rhinitis doesn't. So they can go, oh, well, I think that the symptoms have something to do with allergic rhinitis. Deviated septum is a permanent disability. I mean, until you get it surgically changed. So that's not going to be affected by this. But okay, Ken. I don't know, Raider, but in my humble opinion, this really shouldn't be this involved. Why does the VA do this to us disabled veterans? Why do we have to fight for what we've already earned? I don't know. But this is a very weird thing they did, and I don't understand it. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry, George. But the good news is that this will be on replay here shortly. I'm not going to go too much longer. Sorry. Sorry, your TV's not doing well. Yeah, and torch it up, that'll help. Like, see, that's what we're talking about right there. You got the diagnosis, it's deemed chronic. You know, you've unintentionally did the things that need to be done. But just going in and saying yeah, I've got some anxiety. That's not going to bode well moving forward, right? You need to have chronic symptoms, established diagnosis. Yeah, Bob, that should be fine. That should be safe. Yeah, asthma due to Tara is fine. We're mostly talking about because you're service connected for it, it should be fine. And 101 Spectre. Raiders still need to be trained on changes before changing how they service connect. If recently rated, can quality assurance in the next 6 months still affect you? Yeah. Yes. I mean, for this, we've got multiple things going on. So we've got this right here. It can technically, if it gets pulled for a quality review, but in the next 6 months, after like claims that are filed after this change, it's going to be a little bit of the Wild West until they get it figured out as to how, because a raider could go weird with this and probably be justified in doing it. Now, one of the things that I think John had said earlier was the BVA shall set you free, the Board of Veterans Appeals. And I'm not against that on this one. If they go too squirrely with you on it, you might need to go to the board on it. Like if they keep hand jamming you with acute condition, you might need to go with some kind of medical evidence to the board. I don't know. I'm not making any kind of legal determination or anything like that. I'm just saying that there you might need to use other avenues if it starts getting really weird, I should say. Well, MCM, you would think that, from a veteran centric perspective, that we should be, using kid gloves with them because they haven't sought out care because they've been beat up, by everybody. Sorry, I'm reading something. But honestly, the chronicity will work against them on this. So they're going to have to be the ones that paint the picture, that give the 6 months of chronicity, for a disability, and also the in-service injury. Unless, like, even for presumptive conditions, guys, a presumptive condition still has the vulnerability of not having a diagnosis for VA purposes. If it doesn't have a diagnosis, you can't be granted. So there's still vulnerability, even for the stupid, not stupid, but even for the presumptive conditions, I should say. Question: is the obesity step subjective to the rater? No, okay. The rater has nothing to do with that. That's the examiner. The examiner is the one that decides everything. So the examiner will decide whether or not the obesity evidence is there, whether or not it's probative, whether or not, you meet the criteria for it and it makes medical sense. But it's not going to be the rater. So I hope that helps. If you file claims, okay, so if you filed claims and are looking at doing a higher level review and they never requested, I already answered this one. That's weird. But yeah, you should probably do a higher level review and just ask for a duty to assist error issue. Try to scroll down. I'm going faster. Will personal logs help? They can, Salty, just for maybe establishing the groundwork, but everything has to come with corroboration. Okay. Personal statements are great, but they should be corroborated by other medical evidence. That's the standard. So if we want to talk about a gold standard of submitting a claim, personal logs, personal statements are great, but corroborated by other evidence is the standard. Okay. Great question, man. Okay, buddy statements are subjective statements. But corroborating evidence, like yes, buddy statements can be corroborating evidence, but we need a medical corroboration. We need some kind of medical supporting criteria. If you tell me that you're 10 out of 10 and I can't walk and there's not one medical record for it, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. Okay, so it's going to be something that we need some kind of medical supporting evidence to prove or disprove the matter at issue to help support your statement. Okay. So, and Pocus makes a good point here. Everybody, just because the goalpost gets moved doesn't mean the game is over. Realign your kick, adjust your aim, and send it. Read their words and use them to your advantage. Chess, not checkers. Pocus, that is the best way to put that. My dog is breathing underneath the door like all the oxygen out of the next room. But this is it. Like this is the best advice of the night. But they are moving the goalpost. That's the reason why this live stream is happening. They are moving the goalpost. It is happening. So 6 months when a primary care VA doctor annual exam. This doesn't make sense of anything. I don't like the quality of it doesn't matter. So it's just 6 months of complaints with intermittent. Like you could have 3 examinations in a 6 month period by your doctor. But the fact is that you have 6 months worth of complaints, your subjective statements coupled with your doctor's, examinations and whatnot, and how long they say it's been going on to corroborate your story is what we're talking about. Charlton. Yep. Is this a just fire zone and sweep? I thought it said sweep the leg. So that made me giggle. So I clicked on it. I'm not sure about the personal logs. I might have missed that. We're a little bit behind. We're at 540 and it is 612. I mean, I'm catching up, guys, but I'm not. I'm a little bit. So, well, okay, but guys, personal logs are subjective statements. They need to be corroborated with other evidence. That's the standard. And then, let me see here. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to tick anybody off. That's not my purpose here. My purpose is to try to get ahead of this before the VA gets their locked in, and and then they just start doing things without anybody realizing it. So I do apologize, guys. I know that this probably wasn't delivered the best way, but it is frustrating. Would there be a reason for the previous rating decision be listed as evidence in a rating decision? Yeah, it's for granting purposes. You want to do that, like raters do that because they want to show that they reviewed that rating decision just for accuracy. It's kind of a weird thing, and it's also used to kind of help the next rater identify like if they should grant how far back they should go, right? Like what's in play. It's a good practice to kind of say that you did everything. Um, let me keep going here. If season is only last for 3 months, how does that work? Well, if you only have the thing that frequently, then they might actually have a point as to it being acute or transitory. Well, in H-Town, mental health conditions are a little bit different. So um they behave a little bit differently. So mental da, 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 da. So over a period, veterans disability rate. Okay, so let me see here. I'm looking for mental. Basically, it's going to say that the mental health conditions are typically shouldn't. No, it's up there. Something about mental health diagnosis should have careful attention. When a change in evaluation is made, the rating agency should assure itself that there has been an actual change in the condition for the better or worse, and not merely a difference in the thoroughness of the examination or in the use of descriptive terms. So, mental disorders are seen as something that requires a little bit more diligence to determine that a change has happened. Okay. Yeah. I hope that that answered that. So Google can show me the section of 38 CFR I need. I mean, yeah, potentially. Uh, you can sometimes Google or use Chat GPT and ask them to check to review the 38 CFR and find me sections that refer to this, and it'll do that. Here's the Salty Marine. And once again, guys, I'm going to tell you, make sure to go over to the Salty Marine, the Salty Old Marines channel, H Town's channel, and I'll try to post the links to their channels in my in this live stream thing. Go over there, check them out. I love their channels. Um, they're Raider approved. So here's H Town. Mr. Ray, there is no such thing as too many buddy statements. I mean, there is something called saturation when you've saturated the evidence so much that it is like you're just wearing down the radar at this point in time, trying to account for everything. But my advice is to be concise with it. If you're trying to, figure out what you're trying to use that evidence to prove, and if you can prove it with that evidence, dogpiling doesn't necessarily help you in all instances, especially if it's like a supplemental claim where you already have element one proven. You don't need to dogpile it to the ends of the earth. You're missing element two. So it might be good to focus on that. And guys, I see the donations. I will be, as soon as I get down to your questions here, we will be answering them. Jarhead, yes, I can't believe it either. We're growing steadily. Yeah, take a drink. I'm talking fast. So 66. This is, I don't understand why they made these changes, but it seems like a lot man, my conspiracy brain needs to stop, because I'm like, wait a minute, you're changing this, you're changing that. There's this, Walsh guy, there's just other people, and then you've got Congress that are pushing towards having changes be done. And I don't know. I just don't like these changes. There's no value added for them, in my opinion. I've never heard of a duty to maximize, but I like it. I mean, I like the premise of it. But it says this does not follow the duty to maximize, a well-established obligation to apply the law and evidence in the most favorable way. Seems like the opposite. Okay, T-Mac. I'm going to be honest with you here. Okay. So, like the laws, judges apply laws, lawyers apply laws. Like the VA doesn't apply laws. Like that's not what they do. They have the M21 manual, which is a translation of the laws into a actual, like, this is how you perform the tasks in order to satisfy these things. And I do not disagree that the M21 manual is woefully lacking in a lot of areas, but there is no applying laws. When you do a higher level review, that is to review the M21 manual and maybe some 38 CFRs, but not very many. But it sucks and it's frustrating, and I get it. What is this? Michael, thank you for becoming a member. It's always appreciated, never required. But yes, thank you so much. Okay, so the Salty Marine. Would this override the PACT Act claims? Asthma, for example. I believe it says diagnosis anytime after service. That initial diagnosis for someone might not show as chronic. So the only way that this would affect the PACT Act would come back to this right here. So the current diagnosis. So The PACT Act has to do with element one being just that you have chronic asthma. As long as you can prove that, you'd be fine. Like that wouldn't hurt anything. Um, but it's still vulnerable. Like all of the theories for service connection are vulnerable for element one of a current diagnosis. So yes, I mean technically it wouldn't override the PACT Act. So that's not it wouldn't override it, but what it would do is it would potentially make it to where you don't have element one, and if you don't have element one, you can't be granted. You need element one and element two to be linked together by element three. So this seems like a softball way to start putting the kibosh on granting things. It's just my opinion. I'm not saying that there's no official documents to support that. It's just I don't understand why they're doing this, but it's very weird and very subjective. So I'm just gonna keep going. Oh, you should take a pulmonary function test. I mean, you shouldn't have to, but you can't say no, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why they want to do that. Like sometimes the Raiders just don't do it. Um, I don't know. It's weird. George, if you're encouraging Raiders to find reasons to deny, doesn't that go against the regulation that they have a duty to assist? Oh no, they're not encouraging people to. They're not in. Let's be really sarcastic in my answer here. They're not encouraging people to deny people. They're encouraging Raiders to apply the acute and transitory regulations. That's what they're doing. They're wanting the Raiders to apply the acute and transitory condition requirements, which just so happens to deny the crap out of a bunch of people. So, and I don't understand why they're doing it. It just seems very, very. It seems like the people that can't see a disability type situation, that object permanence thing I talk about all the time. It is harder for them to say, and that's what I was showing right there is that it is harder for them to make changes to it. Now, you can have an acute or transitory mental health condition. That's why veterans that are discharged for mental health have routine future exams 6 months afterwards, is to see if their condition has improved any. But once you get established, it's very hard for them to change it. But you can have mental health that is acute and a transitory. Like if you lost your job and you got depressed because of it, if you got another job, you should be able to bounce back. So there are certain situations where that is true and not true. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, blue jays and bugs. I had a medical doctor tell me that asthma equal reactionary airway disease. All asthma attacks are allergy attacks. Sounds like asthma will only be covered if you take preventative meds. I don't even know what to say here. If you've got a doctor that's like that, I might get a different doctor. Like if my doctor told me that nonsense, I'd be like, check, please, I'm out. Just actually, you know what? I'll get the check later. I'm just leaving. I'm done. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Um, Let me see here. I'm keeping going, keeping going, keeping going. Fatty liver is transitory. I love it. You're just hitting all my hot spots. No, they do not. See, there's no value added to denying versus granting. There are no bonus points for denying. There's no bonus points for granting. It doesn't matter. But that's why whenever the VA makes a decision, right? Like whenever they make a decision to change the M21, sometimes those changes have a tone to them, or sometimes those changes behave in a way that kind of either disenfranchise veterans or they favor veterans. But this appears to be the disenfranchising side. That would be a very interesting situation, but the examiner gets to interpret all that stuff. That's where that competent medical evidence thing comes into play, is that they get to interpret how that is reviewed. And if they believe that you have an allergy, then guess what? They get to manifest your destiny. Um, fatty liver. Fatty liver for the win. It has manifested itself into a like it was here before me, so it could live. When filing a muck me, do we state for example IBS due to muck me as a claim title? I say what I say is, and this is my standard for everything: diagnosis, symptom, how it's claimed. So IBS with diarrhea and constipation for over 6 months, uh, claimed under 38 CFR 3.317. That's how I would claim it, to be quite honest with you, if it were my claim. I got 40% for my dominant shoulder. I'm leaving that alone. Yeah, there's no way on earth. Like 40% for your dominant shoulder means basically you can bear, like, hold on. Hold on. 5251. No. 5201. Nope. You got to type it. You got to type it. So that means that you can, like, from the position of attention, you can only raise your arm 25 degrees. That is scary. I am so sorry, man. That sucks so bad. Sorry, my dog is rubbing her ear against the ground, just groaning over here. Blue jays and bugs. Can a gen med be used to rate TBI residuals? No, because, well, no, because a TBI cannot be. I mean, it'd have to be an in-person. It'd have to be in person, and then they would have to be. I mean, I guess so, as long as they as long as they added the DBQs to it. I mean, yes, technically it could. One was ordered after the CMP exam for sleep apnea and hypertension before the CMP for residuals. Yeah, I mean, what's going to have to happen is they'll have to potentially do a medical opinion on that to figure out whether or not those things are related to TBI or they're independently their own thing. So that'll be a little bit more challenging. And you will have a TBI subject matter expert rater that does your claims. So they will be able to sort that stuff out. Now, keep in mind, you could have to go to another examination should should the evidence not be sufficient to rate you and they can't answer that question as to whether or not they are residuals of TBI or they're a separate issue. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so is treatment required or are complaints documented in Blue Button report enough for 6 months of chronicity? I'm going to say both are required. Moving forward, both are required to have what I would consider I got to be careful how I word this because I don't want it to be worded officially. A sufficient claim that gets you the highest probability of success, I would say both would be required. Because at that point in time, you're putting all the maximum amount of evidence towards your claim to get the best outcome that matches your evidence. Statements made by the veteran, examiners can easily overwhelm those and they can easily discount those. You could have 32 pages of migraine logs and they can discount that offhandedly. However, if you have 6 months worth of treatment to include like a triptine, one of those other medications and or gizmos that help you out with that stuff, then that is corroborating evidence and that provides validity to your statements because that's a medical doctor. Because remember, competent medical evidence is evidence that is given by a medical provider. Well, that can also be your provider by the treatment that they've given you. So the examiner will weigh that differently. But disrobed crown, yes, that is true. And this is good advice. Seriously, all active duty members who are currently close to getting out, please go to medical and spill your guts about everything that is wrong with you. True story. Have no shame. Do the exact opposite of Lieutenant Dan. Have no shame. Go to the doctor, report your stuff. You either do have a disability or you don't. It's as simple as that. But if you have a disability and you stay quiet about it, guess what? You get to keep that disability for free. and you'll still have it, just sucks. Now let's see here. I'm almost to the bottom. I'm skipping some. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to the bottom. Can you file a diarrhea claim if you have lactose allergy but have been getting medication for 2 years? The answer as of today is no. It's an acute or transitory condition because it's due to something it has a causal acute etiology. So if you have that medically established that you have lactose intolerance, you can't get it service connected. That's the frustrating thing. They didn't warn us about this. See, that's the part about, like, people are freaking out about the mental health, the tinnitus, and the sleep apnea. We got warning for that for years, right? This change right here, there's no warning. And I would argue that this one can be more detrimental in some instances. What do you mean by that? What the hell you mean by that? Huh, Charlton? What do you mean by that? Right there. Right there. What do you mean? What you talking? All right. Well, thank you. I mean, I'm just trying to put it out here. Hopefully I'm not freaking people out, and hopefully I'm just giving you the you need to be prepared thing. I did have some notes here. Let me see here. Pre-change, post-change, interpretation. Get a tax element 1 and element 2. Yeah. But I'll re-summarize my stuff at the end. And Queen of Wands, we're going to be talking about that. So tomorrow's video, okay. And guys, I know I don't do enough videos, but I do one a day. Okay. So I'm doing the best I can. So tomorrow's video is going to be about the changes to mental health, sleep apnea, and tinnitus, and how to frame your evidence, as long as it's true, in the most favorable light. Like, what does it take to claim that successfully and get it granted on the historical criteria? We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. Okay, guys? And then we're going to probably go into how to basically format your evidence in the best possible light. I'm going to be doing that too. I've got a list of videos I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing the knee next week. Maybe even Sunday I'll be talking about the knees. I'll be talking about a lot of stuff. Pardon me. Yes, and H-Town has it right here. H-Town is always the voice of reason. Same with the salty old Marine too. Solid, constant treatment equals solid evidence. No, this does not mean that. This does not mean that any claims that are currently already in the pipeline are with the old way and are they with the new M21 changes. So basically, it's a mixed bag. Raiders are going to be slow on the uptake unless they're like me and they actually read this stuff and look at it. QRT, probably in the next 3 weeks or so, will have a quality review meeting, like a Raider all hands, in which they talk about this, and they talk about this change, because what happens is the same email system that I got for this change, QRT got for this change too. Then what they're going to do is they're going to write up a formal document and email it out to all the Raiders and say, hey, look, this is what the changes are and this is what this means. Then what they're probably going to do is they're going to have a Raider all hands in which they do a training and they say, hey, look, guys, we just want to do a little bit deeper training on this, and we want to talk about when are the situations, what are the caveats, and how that works. Each regional office will have this probably. And unfortunately, they're not all going to come to the same conclusion. Okay, let's just be clear on that. Like it's very weird how we can maybe not come to the same conclusion on stuff. Oh man. Um Craig, my employer understands that I get migraines. When I do, they allow me to flex my time. Very vet friendly. On average, 6 migraines per month, four requiring me to flex time. What do you want to see as the rater for the 50%? I want a document from the actual job with their letterhead in which your boss says that you have been given an accommodation for your migraines because you are unable to perform the job duties, if this is true, mind you, you are unable to perform the job duties that you are assigned whenever you have a migraine. So you are allowed to flex your time, work through, and then make up your time later on. So that way it doesn't, like negatively go into your sick time or AL to cause a problem. So that's going to be how I would resolve that, Craig. I hope that that answered your question. But yeah, I'd want to see separate documentation from them. John Michael, John Michael's here. I'm hoping John Michael feels better today. A few people with integrity. John Michael, I don't understand. There's a lot of people that just don't understand what that word means. It weirds me out that people don't understand what the term integrity means. They did it to all of us, husband, BBA. Sorry, I'm reading questions. I'm scrolling down as fast as I can. And I'm also looking to see if Johnny Boy wants to talk with me again. I love him. He's like he's like my favorite person. I refuse to honestly ban him just because he has a weird opinion, and that's fine. We must be informed to protect ourselves. The people perish because of a lack of knowledge. Okay, yeah, true. John, will these changes cause the VA healthcare doctors to not want to give a diagnosis or conditions for a disability? No, John. The VHA is not going to have any kind of clue about this change. Like they're going to go about doing their business the same way. This is exclusively for the BVA and how they interpret the evidence. Hutchins, not trying to shoot the messenger here. You do great work, Raider. Keep it up. And don't worry about it. Look, I get it, guys. Like, I get that, like I'm trying not to be the sky is falling stuff, but this is one of those things where you have to understand how the process works. Okay. If you don't, then you can be the victim of it. Let me see here. I don't know what this, John. Be advised if he has a secret board that can meet in secret, accuse you of being difficult. You can't go to the hearing. You can be banned or have the police escort. Yeah, you can be flagged. They're called behavior flags. I am a fearmonger, Mr. Ray. I'm a dirty, dirty fearmonger. But yeah, they're called behavior flags, and there's two different tiers to them. And yes, there is a committee. I was on that committee once. And we determined whether or not somebody needed a behavior flag, escort, or they couldn't be on the premises. It does suck. It is very frustrating. I think the saddest and scariest thing is that this stuff happens so under the radar. If it wasn't for people like you, we'd have absolutely no idea. Thank you for the donation, by the way. I appreciate it. John, thanks you also for the donation. But yeah, I get it. That's why I monitor this stuff. And because I've been monitoring it, I know that other people, like other YouTube content creators, are starting to look at it too. And this one flew under the radar because a lot of people didn't even notice how potentially damaging it can be towards proving your current disability or in-service event. What are we at here? 6:18, 6:40. I'm always 30 minutes behind. I'm scrolling down. I'm going to probably take off here in a few. Okay. I want to get to another one of these. Brother, how long is taking you to answer email? I've turned the email off. I know you have thousands. You're doing a great job sharing information. I've basically turned my email off, to be quite honest with you. So I do apologize, but I'm kind of not um, I'm not answering them. As a rater, how hard is it to get SMCL or SMCL 1/2 for someone who was at 100% PNT next day after separation? Like, how hard is it? Very hard, because you have to convince the rater that you are so medically impaired that you can't do your ADLs. And then if you meet 1/2, that's challenging in of itself, because the VA hasn't had good guidance on how to interpret that half step stuff. So it's hit or miss as to what you get. So you'll have some raters that do it, some that don't, and there's still not a penalty for not doing it. But I am always 15 minutes early. Da, 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 da. If rated 100% PNT and diagnosed with and being treated for non-rated things, should I poke the bear? You can add new conditions. Like if you're rated, it depends. What's the value added, Rushing? If you could potentially get a SMC, then yeah, that might be value added. If there's no value added, then there's no value added, to be quite honest with you. So you shouldn't poke the bear. Denied increase 30 to 50% migraines. Supervisor statement, average 3 days, month sick, leave lower performance ratings. Migraine diaries. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Maybe not. Okay, so what you're missing is you're missing the severe economic inadaptability. So what I like to see, now I personally would take sick leave as a requirement, but some raters like to see the fact that what accommodations have you got at work to try to work through them? What kind of challenges are your migraines presenting at your job? Right? Because the severe economic inadaptability isn't you taking sick leave, it's that your migraines are causing some kind of dilemma at your work that they have to accommodate, right? And you taking sick leave is natural. You can take sick leave for almost anything. But dimmer switches that were installed on your behalf, like something like that, would be convincing objective evidence that corroborates the fact that you have severe economic inadaptability. So that's my advice: is try to get some kind of, if it's true for you, try to get some kind of statement from your work saying the things that they have done to try to accommodate you. Never poke the bear. James, what about caregiver compensation for my spouse? What type of additional information is useful in this scenario? How do you show function in a letter? That's the VHA side of the fence. That's the VHA's aid and attendance caregiver program. I have no information about that. You might go to the patient advocate and see if they can help you with the criteria for that, or have your spouse obviously go to the patient advocate and kind of discuss that. Oh, let me see here. Let me go here. We're still going. We're rolling. Okay, I think I made it to the bottom. Okay. Good evening, Raider HQ. I have a supplemental decision pending. Meantime, sub new claim, recent decision 100% PNT, supplemental still pending. Do you believe that they will decide the supplemental to continue as a decision? I mean, yeah, they have to follow through with the supplemental. I mean, it's still going to go through. Just because you reach 100% doesn't necessarily mean that they just give up on all your claims because what happens is there are additional benefits that you could get. So unfortunately, uh, like you could potentially get an SMC from it. So there's no reason to just discount the supplemental claim. So they'll still adjudicate it. Well, anyway, guys, I made it down to the bottom. I skipped some things. I looked at some things. When am I doing another surprise collaboration with anybody else? I do one with H-Town Vet almost every single night. And we've been trying to get the Salty Marine on there. And it would be nice to get the Salty Old Marine on there. And I promise that, and this is H-Town's channel. So he's it's up to him. But if the Salty Old Marine wants to go on there and just chat, I'll keep the profanity to a minimum. I'll pretend like it's my channel. Now, the Salty Marine, I don't think he'll mind too much, but I like the wholesomeness of the Salty Old Marine's channel, and he doesn't swear very much, so I'd honor that. But it's not a surprise if he tells us. What does that mean? But anyway, I don't know. Yeah. Well, no, I've had it to where like I was on Mr. Dwayne Kimball's. He just invited me on to speak, and it was just kind of I don't know what we should call those. It was like a spontaneous collaboration thing. Like there are spontaneous collaborations. Have an accommodation letter from uni showing that I had a note taker in each class, audio equipment, 100% extra time, and other things. Does that help for SMCL case? No, that does not. No. So, okay. SMCL is a medical determination that you require the aid of another human being in order to complete certain tasks, activities for daily living. So you need to certify, number one, that you require another human being to do ADLs. Number two, you have to show evidence that without that human being, you couldn't do that task, evidenced by X, Y, and Z. And number three, you need some kind of corroborating evidence, like medication management impairment. Like I can't manage my own meds, so I have to have a nurse come in and manage them. That's like the easiest one to get granted for. Yes. Well, okay. Flexman, I agree with you the majority of the time on this issue, but there is something called acute leukemia that can be granted. Like there are certain types of cancers that are acute in nature, not because they will go away, but just of how frequently they came out. The reason why people are freaking out about this is because it unfairly gives the ability to rewrite how your disabilities, whether or not they're true or untrue. And it's a bad thing. It's a bad precedent to set, because if you looked at the and well, might as well just do that right now. But if you looked at the requirements that were beforehand, so like right here, everything that's not yellow is the requirements beforehand for acute and transitory. The common cold, pneumonia, and a bruise makes sense, right? Like nobody's disagreeing that the common cold should not be service connected. Pneumonia, maybe. I mean, like if it causes residuals, maybe. But a bruise should not be service connected. But diarrhea, people get service connected for chronic diarrhea all the time. But you can now be denied for diarrhea if it's due to lactose intolerance, which before this change, that didn't matter. If you had diarrhea due to lactose intolerance in service and you were granted, you could be granted for that. But as of the 14th, you can no longer be granted for that because it's considered an acute or transitory condition. Well, and that's a very good statement. It is a slippery slope for fraudsters, but this is a slippery slope for the VA because they can throw a lot of people out. They can throw a lot of valid disabilities out based upon the random determinations of an examiner, not based upon the evidence. So it is a slippery slope, but I say it's more of a slippery slope for just denying things. Oh yeah, no, that's just acute or transitory. They don't have to support their outcome, their rationale. So for me, yeah, and it is something to where a rater can go rogue, an examiner can go rogue. We have a hard enough time, like where nurse practitioners are overcoming neurologists. Okay, think about that for a minute. That is a common thing where you'll have a cardiologist, a specialist in their field, get overturned by a nurse practitioner. And all this change does is make it to where that disparaging thing can happen more often, just in a different capacity. So it does suck, unfortunately. Doc Shelley. Jeez. But anyway, guys, that's about all I got for you on this one. Let me go back through here, and I just want to say thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Spanky, I didn't know that. I must have had a stroke halfway through that because I didn't see that you gave so much, so I appreciate that. We talked about Dustin. Thank you for becoming a member. We talked about Boom Nailed It. Thank you for becoming a member. 101 Spectre, thank you for the donation. Michael, thank you for becoming a member. Craig, thank you for the donation. Hutchins, yes, appreciate it. JSMC, thank you for the donation. We got James. Yeah, I answered that one. Thank you for donating. Douglas, I answered this one. And thank you for the donation. And James, thank you for the donation. I answered that one. And I think different James, said yes, and I did answer that one. So thank you guys very much for all that. Thank you, everyone. So what did we learn tonight? We learned that these changes are not the end of the world. Like Flexman said, these are not the end of the world. However, they are changing how the process works. We need to actually go in and change how we basically file a claim. We have to up how much evidence we have. We have to increase the threshold artificially moving forward. Okay. So, what that's going to look like is we have to actually, if you have something that could be considered acute, make sure that you can identify your residuals to counter that argument that it could be acute in nature. Transitory. It needs to have been going on for 6 months or more. I would argue that if it hasn't been going on for 6 months or more, that it is not a real thing. And Boom nailed it. It's not going to matter about your allergy test. The acute conditions means that it's just literally short in duration with no residuals. Allergies just happen to typically fall in that category. So an allergy test will not satisfy the 3-prong criteria that it have definite symptoms, that it's not short in duration, and that it's not without apparent residuals. Okay. So you need to make sure that you are doing these things. Now, the last thing, thank everybody for donating. You don't have to do that at all. You never do. It's never required. I'm going to give out, the information regardless. But I would like to once again take the time to point out the Salty Marine, okay? And I would like to also point out the Salty Old Marine, which I don't think I can find him real quick. But the Salty Old Marine, go to his channel too. And then go to H-Town Vet's channel, because all three of them are just good people. They don't gin it up. And that's about all I got for you tonight. Now, we will be doing a live stream tomorrow. And we will be talking about the changes that Congress did kind of state will be going into effect before the end of the fiscal year, September 2026. I'll be doing a video tomorrow before the changes happen, or before the live stream happens. And I'm going to be talking about stuff. And I've already kind of talked about it a little bit, in which there are certain situations where we don't know if all of these things are going to drop at the same time. So there might be an order of operations that you want to actually go through, and you might want to start gathering evidence now, because remember, acute or transitory is going to play a role in these changes. So you want to start gathering evidence now if you're going to file claims. Have 6 months of evidence under your belt. But anyway, guys, that's about all I've got for you tonight. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, Flexman, you can it's fine. Like, it could be a slippery slope for anything. Changes are a slippery slope, but this doesn't have any benefit to veterans. Like, there's no positive thing where it's like any veteran is going to get more service connected due to these changes. The only potential outcome is they're going to have they're going to have less opportunity to be granted due to these changes. And that's just in my opinion. But anyway, guys, and Flexman, thank you for the comment. I do appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night. Once again, the sky is not falling. Just let's let's just get prepared. We know that the turbulence is coming. Let's just put the seatbelt on, okay? Anyway, guys, have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye. Raider out. Luna out. Zoe out.